coming, and then thank you to everyone who's tuning in to the stream. So today I'm going to be going a little bit over my experience as a photographer leading up to Perspective Plus. It is my first solo exhibition, um, and so this has been a huge journey for me, something that started in 2016. But first of all, a little bit about me. First and foremost, my full-time job is a bilingual customer support specialist for Company Cam. It's a software app. I don't do photography as a full-time job, but it is something that I do consider myself a professional as, because of all the development and learning that I have been doing for the last 7 years. A little bit of hobbies, sometimes cliche to add hobbies in, but they're kind of relevant to what I'm going to be talking about today. I do a lot of cycling, martial arts, and I love to explore. And I currently live in Lincoln, Nebraska, which is 12 and a half hours away from Minot. So Perspective Plus, I felt like it was necessary to show this. That was one of the first images that I took when I first got a DSLR camera back in 2016, and this is one of the most recent ones that I've done. I've always loved photography. Growing up, I took some classes in middle school. Got my photography merit badge when I was in Boy Scouts. The world around me has always fascinated me. Just the different angles. Such as these photos. I took these in 2009 in a point and shoot. I was just so amazed by the different angles, all the lines, all the colors, all the subjects that the world has to offer. So when I first started off, it was not with a camera of any sorts. When I really took off was when I got an iPod 4th gen back in college. That was the main camera that I used for a while, and then I moved on to smartphones, including Samsung Galaxies and currently an iPhone. I understand that smartphones and taking photography from smartphones is a very divisive debate. Some people don't consider that photography, and some people do. It really is how you perceive it and how you take advantage of it. It is a really great place to start. That is where I did it for a huge chunk of years. The beauty of newer phones is that there's things such as Pro Mode where you can switch over and have full exposure or full control of your exposure. That is something that is a great way to start because as a photographer, you want to have that eye for it, but you also need to know the technical aspect of it. So it's an amazing place to start as a new photographer. Equipment helps. It helps to have a really nice camera. I am guilty of that, of understanding. I used to be very much, equipment doesn't matter. That's true. Your mind is more important and the eye for photography is more important, but it does help. So eventually you are going to want to, if you're wanting to commit to photography, you want to move up to a DSLR camera, and that's where Perspective Plus and the story behind it starts. So 2016, give you a little story. Back in 2016, there was the Nikon D3300. It was probably, I think, the most basic entry-level DSLR that Nikon offered at the time. I had been eyeing it. I did not do any research. I just saw that it was Nikon and that it had interchangeable lens. I didn't even know what DSLR meant when I first started, to be honest. One day, I was walking around Walmart with my parents. I was like, hey, I want to go see this camera again. And I'd been talking to them about it for weeks now. It's like, oh, there's this camera I want. I really want it. And I don't know if I should get it. I have the money for it, but I don't know. And one day, the last time when we were walking around Walmart, I was doing my same thing. I was like, I don't know if I want it. I think I do, but I don't know. And they're like, okay, either buy it today or quit talking about it because it's getting old. This is indecisiveness, and they meant it in a really in a great way. There was more of a push to buy it if I was really wanting to commit to it. So I ended up purchasing it, and that very same day, I cleared my schedule and went out to Cotton Mill, a local park where I was studying at, and started taking photos like this. Looking back, they're not great photos. When I first took them, I was like, wow, these are so cool, but now, incredibly blurry. But these photos inspired me, and I was like, wow, I think I kind of love photography. And so that started with practicing. I prioritized practicing photography. I kind of stopped doing a lot of other stuff that I love to do, simply or strictly to practice photography. I practiced for 4 months, and the end of the spring semester came. I was a music major, and then I realized that I liked creating more. So I changed my major to advertising and public relations with a minor in photography, because of how much I loved photography and how much I love to create. So then summer 2016 came around. I was outside almost every day taking photos, either of people, of streets, of night, and I made sure to focus on the basics. At that time I was shooting JPEG and on automatic, but I was slowly starting to figure out, how manual works, what shutter speed should I be using for so and so, and what ISO should I be using for this. Primarily, I focused on portraits. I would post on Facebook, on marketplaces, and be like, hey, I'm a new photographer. I'm looking to do some work and develop my skills. This is free. This is because of my lack of experience. When I first started photography, it did start as a love for it, but I knew that if I wanted to make some money off of it as well, I had to do portrait or like senior photos, couples photos, weddings, etc. That type of photography. When still in 2016, fall semester started, my first semester as a photographer, or as a minoring in photography. I had a digital photography class with a professor of photography, Derek Burble, and I will tell you that was probably the most eye-opening experience I had when it came to what exactly I was striving for with photography. Like I said, I was wanting to focus more on portraits so that I can start a business with that. But he asked me these questions when we would do our critiques. He was like, how do you make this photo yours? How do you make it so that when someone sees it, they're like, that's Carlos's photo because of how he shot it or how it was edited, the composition. How do you push that photo even more? So we've reached this baseline with this photo, but how do we keep pushing it artistically and still within good taste? That's something he always asked during our critiques, and that was something that gave me a desire to create. It made me view photography as an art instead of making a way to make money for it. So with that, I started doing more astrophotography, action sports, street photography. I started pushing myself away from portraits, all while still using portraits as a way to practice the basics and gain confidence. So from 2017 to 2018, I was in field experience mode. Basically, I was out every day or weekly. I would be learning. I'd be traveling to a new spot. I'd go out with friends, and we would go to somewhere random and just do photography for the sake of practicing. From 2017 to 2018 was probably the most educational portion of my journey through photography. I had a trip to Toronto, which is part of my Tattoo Origins collection. It solidified my love for street photography. Also, at the end of 2017, I decided to leave school. At that time, I was not fulfilled with what I was doing. I was not sure what I wanted to do, And as we all know, college takes some money to attend. And at that point, I was just not going anywhere and was not in that position. Something else, after my dropping out, I started this sort of collective called Rhythm of Thieves. It was with friends. The name actually comes from this misheard lyric from one of my favorite songs. But at the time, I was like, man, that sounds really cool. Like, there was no backstory to the name aside from it. That would be a cool name for a group. And originally, after Toronto, I was so inspired by the street photography that I decided to market myself as a street photographer. When I first started, I was Leonel Photography, so that's my middle name, and then moved to Rhythm of Thieves, and then realized it was kind of a lame name for a single person. It would be better as a group collective. And then later Rhythm of Carlos, that is the original logo I made for myself. I had never made a logo, and I was like, I'll just open up Photoshop and see what I can clunk out, and it took me like a couple hours to make. After that was my first time up here in Minot. I had actually submitted this photo. I don't remember the name of it. Overpassing Loneliness is what it was called. And it was the Northwest Art Center was the first center, or the first gallery that actually had accepted my work and had posted it featured it as part of a bigger exhibition. Then after that, I did a Raw Artist Showcase, which is this organization for artists that gave me a first taste of art shows and the work behind it. Then after that I was part of a collection group called Humankind, a perspective collection. We would photograph people and then run 2-hour interviews with them where we basically heard their story. That helped me a lot to gain confidence with people. It's a confidence that I couldn't gain doing portraits. And I just heard a lot of incredible stories, and that's something that I'll keep talking about throughout my journey, is all the stories that I've heard. I mean, even just being here, going to the independent art study earlier this morning and the capstone class yesterday, just hearing all these stories it's such a great part of photography, capturing those moments and capturing those stories, but hearing them is just as great. Also within this time frame, I upgraded my camera to the Nikon D3300, and I went to New York City, which it taught me to not be afraid. It was my first time going by myself to a city. I'm originally from New York, but being raised in a small town, going to New York City by yourself is very overwhelming. So after that, 2019 rolled around. That's kind of where things started to calm down. I wasn't going out as much, but I was still practicing quite a bit. I had gained the confidence in the technical skills of it all, and that allowed me more of a freedom to start exploring different styles, different editing styles, start focusing more on editing instead of composition and the work behind the camera. Also at that time, the Humankind, a perspective collection, ended. The creator moved on to do graduate school in a different state, so it just wasn't feasible, and that ended up leaving a giant void in what I wanted to do with creativity. Around that time, I ended up going to Los Angeles on a very last-minute trip with my uncle, and it taught me a lot about being free with this newfound, confidence with my knowledge and able to explore more. That's also what led to my introduction to color grading. And then towards the end of 2019, my boss, Gail, at the time, I was hired with LifeTouch, a school picture company, and I was reintroduced to portraits. I was hanging out in the city more, so I was able to work with more people again. and with this confidence that I had of the knowledge from the technical aspect, as well as the developing that I was doing portraits for Life Touch, allowed me to regain that entry into portraits and continue learning more of the basics and having a better understanding. That also led to the beginning of the collection of tattoo origins. I had spent the last 2 years going to these 3 different cities, developing my photography, and it just was very influential that I wanted a way to memorialize that and keep that forever, because although it is a small chunk of my life, and it's going to be a small chunk, that developing part, it is always going to be incredibly important to me. And then towards the end, we started the art project series with artist Riley G. And then towards the end of 2021, that's when I noticed that I had won the All Media Best of Show for 2021. So that actually brings us to now. We go a little bit over some of the collections. All these are relevant and why I'm talking about them, because all of this is due to the amount of practice and learning that I was open to, and all the experiences that I had gone through. Tattoo Origins is by far one of my most influential works, personally. It's 3 different cities, very influential in a technical and personal way. It covered New York City, Toronto, and Los Angeles, and I ended up tattooing it on my right forearm. I included a picture for those who were at the reception yesterday. I don't have to roll up my sleeve here. And the main story behind the tattoo goes beyond the locations, but for the sake of this conversation, we're just going to look at the locations. So New York City, I went in November of 2018. Like I said, I went alone. It was initially for a family friend's daughter's birthday, but I had some time off, so I decided to take a few days after the party to do some exploring. I didn't really acknowledge how much of a difference between Nebraska and New York City there'd be as far as the stress of creating there. So it was very overwhelming. I actually had to stop that day. Ended up going to a soccer game to kind of de-stress myself. But after that, I realized that I had to overcome my emotions. Bless you, by the way. I had to overcome my emotions and overcome that fear of I was just by myself there, and there was no stress of having to create for a specific reason. So there was no reason to be stressed, which is what caused the stress. But New York City really taught me that, regardless of how I'm feeling, if I want to create, I'm going to create. And yes, that's going to influence how the final product looks. And even with New York City, it did take me a few months to actually go into those photos because the amount of emotion that I felt during that trip. And then in the technical aspect of what I learned how to use masks in Lightroom to isolate the subject or to mask the subject and kind of make the background either pop more or kind of hide it a bit more. And that was to kind of give it a more bring the subject out even clearer, because a lot of the stuff that I shot in New York City was candid photos of subjects. So in 2017, July, I went to Toronto with my dad, my brother, and my cousin. This was the first time I ever really done street photography in an actual city. I'd only ever done it in our small, it's a city smaller than Minot. So I didn't really have that exposure to actual urban exploration and just overall being in the city. So that, going to Toronto, solidified my love for street photography. And that's what inspired me to brand myself as a street photography. I started leaning away from the ideal of doing couples photos, senior photos, weddings, birthdays, and more towards creating art for myself and just enjoying being passionate about photography. The technical aspect of it was that I learned to use hues, saturation, and luminance to pop colors. As you can tell, some of the colors are popped out more than others. And finally, in June of 2019, I went to Los Angeles. I drove from Indianapolis to California off of maybe 5 or 6 hours of sleep with my uncle. This was supposed to be like a 2-day trip that turned into pretty much a whole week. Very last minute, we were still planning it on our way to Los Angeles. That taught me a lot about just going with the flow, taking advantage of opportunities to create. Not every day you're going to get a paid trip to California or New York or just any city. So it taught me to take advantage and take full use of those opportunities. I had one of the greatest skate sessions there at Venice Beach. Most of my action sports comes from that shoot, and I started learning how to color grade with this particular city. So Art Project Series is my second flagship collection. This one's very important to my learning process because at this point I had kind of stopped creating for myself. I was working full-time for Lifetouch. I was still doing some portraits, but they were no longer in the creative sense. I was kind of reverting back to my 2016 self where I wasn't really creating to create. I was creating to develop, which is not a bad thing at all. It's something you should definitely do, but you should never forget why you started creating. Some people tend to forget that, and that was something that both Riley and I had run into. And so we met up. We met up for what we call is a First Friday, which is a bunch of artists open up their galleries to the public, or just walk around and view art and talk to the artists, get to network, hear their stories. We were so inspired by that. We had that desire to create, and it wasn't to create something specific. We came up with prompts. We came up with topics to discuss while shooting, but we had no goal. Like, this could have ended with no photos, and that was okay because we were just wanting to be out there and creating and expressing ourselves. This is loosely inspired by an exhibition I saw at the Guggenheim called Gutai, A Splendid Playground. It was a group of Japanese artists. This was post-World War II. These were artists that were restricted on what they could create at the time, and they had just gained this newfound freedom to create whatever they wanted. So theirs was more expressive and more physical with how they were creating, but the ideal and concept of these artists who were just free, no limitations, they can create what came to mind, even if it did not come out visually appealing or anything of that sort. This was something that even before I was a photographer, I was so, I admired so much because, going through a war like World War II must have been, it was life-changing for everyone who went through it. And so for these artists to have made something incredibly beautiful out of something incredibly ugly was just so inspiring. First art project, we decided to just go to Goodwill, get some props. This collection, Art Project 1, is actually where Reflections of an Independent Mind came from. That is the 2021 Best of Show award winner. So that it was great to see that something that wasn't meant to really go anywhere went somewhere. Art Project 2, Strawberries and Flowers, is a little bit more of a look at loss of innocence. We're both very introverted artists, and to go out of our comfort zone in the way we did for this one also helped, because again, we weren't creating anything specific. We were just wanting to express ourselves, get that energy out, and we were able to do that again. And then Art Project 3, that was probably the most, I would say, brutal one. It was in the single digits that day. We had to shoot at night, and then we shot during the day. It was 5 minutes of shooting, put our hands under our coats. to warm up and then go back to photographing. Other photography that I've done actual photography. I started in the summer of 2016. We would go out weekly with one of my best friends, Kevin. I had no idea how to do astrophotography. I still wasn't shooting manual. I had, for some reason, went out with the expectation that I could do this on automatic or like shutter priority. That was not the case, but stars have always fascinated me. I've enjoyed being outside, and with the skill that you require to do astrophotography successful, I wanted to learn that. I wanted to be able to shoot those stars, and the skills you learn with astrophotography, as well as any other type of photography, is universal. Learning about ISO, not having it too high up there, so you still get the clear shots. This one in particular is more of an abstract one. It's Orion's belt. I just zoomed the lens in and back out to kind of give it that explosive look, which shows how far I have developed from the first night out shooting automatic and getting dark skies. And this is probably the one that I'm still learning. I still struggle with quite a bit, but that's the beauty of learning. You're not going to get it down on the first try or it might even take years, but if you're committed to the craft, things are going to start coming out. I would not have been able to get something like that back in 2016, nor would have I had the confidence to add effects to it in camera. Action sports. This is probably my most favorite. Wrong word. This is my favorite type of photography that I do, but it's also one of the ones that I do the least. I started off by photographing the UNK soccer and volleyball team. UNK is the college I went to. And then after that, it involved me photographing work friends. I had a friend, David, who skateboarded a lot. He invited me out to the skate park one night, and we just shot. And then from there, I started meeting more skaters, and I fell in love with it. There is just something else about action sports that you can't really get with other, like even portraits, because it's so raw. Like, I don't think the soccer player would be able to make that face and imitate this in a non-action sports setting. This moment was a couple seconds. It didn't last that long, and to be able to capture that emotion, capture the curves of the human body as it performs these athletic feats, was just so mind-blowing for me to do. So mind-blowing that I actually, my first year doing action sports photography, I decided to apply to be a Red Bull photographer, which it is okay to dream, and it is okay to take steps towards those dreams, because I didn't get past the first round, obviously, but I enjoyed the process of, okay, I want to shoot specifically for this application. Okay, how do I want the standard, I want this to look like this. All right, now the application process, this is what it looks like. I've done this for maybe 3 other applications where I kind of went in with some confidence, but with the realistic thought that I was not going to get chosen for those positions. But it was just a good learning experience. It helped gain the confidence to start applying for galleries such as the Northwest Art Center, different other galleries. It allows you, because photography is more than taking the photos. For those of you who have your own photography business, there's the marketing, there's the applications for grants or for call for entries. It's not simply, if that's what you're trying to pursue, it's not as simple as taking photos and editing them. Portraits. This one's, As I've mentioned before, portraits is the one that I have practiced the most. It's the one I've put more time and effort into doing. in the last 7 years of being a photographer. First and foremost, I'm very introverted. I'm like very nervous being up here right now. I've just always been a shy person. I've done speech, and I used to do a lot of public speaking, and it's still something I can't get over. And that's why actually if you are introverted or if you are a bit more shy with people, this is the best one to do. It's gonna be rough, it's gonna be challenging, but as soon as you get over that hill, you're gonna notice that your other photography is gonna start improving because, I mean, with portraits, we have to control the light. We don't want to overexpose the skin. We want to make sure the subject is sharp and clear. We want to make sure that the colors match the skin tone. This is stuff you're going to be using in action sports, in astro photography, in street photography, anything. I mean, you name it. Stuff you learn from portraits is universal in the photography industry, and I mean, essentially in any sort of art medium as well. And so it's incredible. And on top of that, you get to meet so many people. When I first started, I would just post stuff on Facebook. Now I post stuff on Instagram. I get my friends to do it. That's my girlfriend, and these are two of my friends. I've worked with strangers, I've worked with friends, and I mean, those people started off as strangers, but now I can consider them friends because of the experiences we've had together and being able to work as artists together. Finally, street photography. My love for it is partially in thanks to the other photography. Like I said, portraits, action sports, all that has influenced street photography. Street photography and candid shots are very much an in the moment. So you need to have that technical skill to be able to capture that in the moment shot and have it still come out successful. I've always loved the urban setting. I was born in New York but raised in Nebraska. But I have just always have loved that feel, the buildings, the architecture behind it, the people. And it's honestly a great discipline to practice editing styles with. With this one, I was practicing having the blacks more darker, color grading to give it that bluish city vibe. And honestly, I still go back to my New York set, to the raws, and start editing based off something I learned or something that I wanted to relook at. Street photography is just going to be a great way to practice those skills. And also you capture great stories. And on top of that, if you're confident enough, you can go up to someone and share a great story. And it's just, there's so many people in this world that with street photography, you can capture that. So why did I go through essentially my whole journey through Perspective Plus? It's because a lot of the learning I did was through those experiences. I learned through those perspectives. It has helped me become a better photographer and a better person. The best learning experience, classroom learning is important. It's important to have that experience of learning through the classroom, but it's essential to make sure you're practicing and executing what you're learning in the classroom through field experience. I'm not saying you should go out and go intern somewhere real quick. This is field experience you're going to be doing on the weekends or after class, stuff you're going to be able to execute what you've learned, because you can't have field experience with some type of classroom learning. When I mean classroom learning, classroom setting like this, or sitting down and watching a video or reading a book, you're going to want to combine them so that you're executing them in a way that fits your style. I can learn all there is to learn in the technical aspect of photography, but if I'm not executing that and incorporating the styles of photography that I like to shoot, the way I like to edit, I'm not really learning to reach my goals. I'm just learning to absorb. Remember your goals and what you specialize in. Like I said, I specialize in street photography. I do a lot of street photography, but be open to deviating from them. Like I said, when I first started, I was looking at doing portraits, weddings, to make money. Then I met Verbal, and that because I was open to those experience or to going through those experiences, I was able to deviate from them and learn all sorts of styles. I reached out beyond my comfort zone, and I was just not. I was able to learn more and actually decide what I wanted to do versus what I thought I wanted to do. So don't forget what you want to start off with, because it's going to be great to go back to. But be open to those new learning experiences, because you'll never know when going out and staying until 3 a.m. taking star photos is going to come handy for your final project regarding portraits. But I will say, one last thing, be open also to going beyond other mediums. This by no means is a great drawing, but I just was bored and wanted to do something. This is how I imagined this photo, being with clouds and stars, so I just drew it, but I wanted to kind of reach beyond photography. I wouldn't say I am a painter or a designer, drawer. I would still say I'm only a photographer, but I love learning those new mediums. But be prepared to commit. Don't stop practicing. It's going to sound a little harsh, but you're never going to be good enough to the point that you can stop practicing. You can be a maestro, you can be a master of your art, but you're always going to need to practice. You're always going to want to learn. There's always new stuff coming out. There's new tech with lenses where you can customize the focal point. There's new trends coming out. There's new norms of society that are coming out. You shouldn't bend to those, but you should be willing to learn from them. That way you can apply it to what you're already doing and still be able to expand your knowledge and be able to create more. Because with that expansion, you're able to create more because you have that knowledge and it's opening more doors for you. Everything worth doing requires a similar type of discipline. I included these pictures because I do enjoy mountain biking, and I do Taekwondo as well. And I will tell you, from what I've learned, I also love to cook. That's relevant to this topic. I will tell you that the stuff that I've learned from Taekwondo, the stuff that I've learned from mountain biking, the stuff I've learned from cooking, it is all similar to what I've learned in photography, and that is you need to have perseverance. Every time you show up to a photo shoot, soccer practice, anything, you want to make sure you're persevering. You're still having fun, but you're putting your best effort into learning, into executing, into developing. You also want to have a discipline of practicing. You're not going to get any better if your camera's sitting in your backpack for the last 2 weeks. It's not gonna develop you. You're gonna stay the same. And so, what I was trying to wrap that up. It's worth doing. If it's worth doing, you're gonna have to put the time in. You're gonna have to put the effort in. It's not gonna be easy, but I will assure you that it is worthwhile to put that time in. All right, so I know I got a few minutes left. To wrap all that stuff up, it is important that you're displaying your work, whether it be through a physical medium, such as the Northwest Art Center, the application process, the prep process, because preparing frames and mounting in bulk for a whole gallery is challenging, but it's worthwhile. This specific photo right here, I've only ever seen it behind the screen. In the moment that I rolled it out in the physical print, in the moment I saw it appear, it changed the whole aesthetic of that photo. By not showing it, you're keeping yourself away from potential clients reaching out to it. And you're also keeping the world from seeing the unique story that you're trying to tell. You know, as artists, we're always trying to tell stories, and if you're not displaying it, you're keeping those stories back. And those stories are meant to be told. They're meant to be heard. They're meant to be seen. Because regardless of how you see it, by becoming a photographer, by becoming any sort of artist, you're creating a legacy of your work, and that's one of the ways people are going to remember you by. Even if you don't become a big name like Monet, Michelangelo, or Vivian Maier, that's still your legacy. Like when you're gone from this world and the art is still there, that's how people are going to remember your name. So display that work. Don't be afraid to do it. And if you're not comfortable with displaying it physically, get an online portfolio. They're great. They're great ways to access your photos. They're a great way to they're a great excuse to catalog them. First of all, you should always catalog them. Don't be like me and wait till exhibition preparation to catalog them. Have that online portfolio, because you have that set to your LinkedIn, you have that set to your Instagram. Clients can see it, potential employers can see it, and you're still telling your story in some sort of way. And make sure you display the work that best describes you. Don't place the work that you think you want people to describe you as. Place the work that you want yourself to describe yourself as an artist. All right, so just to wrap some closing remarks, just open yourself up for unique experiences that only photography and art can give you. We're blessed enough to be artists and to have those skills and the commitment to learn this craft, regardless of what medium you have. So open yourself up for those unique experiences. It's gonna open a lot of doors, potential to do new stuff and create new stuff. Keep creating, even if it's not your full-time job. Like I said, I don't get paid for my photography aside from gallery showings, but I still enjoy it. I'm still passionate about it, and it's still one of the things I love the most. And then be open to new processes and new styles. You never know if something that you don't try is going to be something that you like, and you won't know that until you try it. And then enjoy life and the skills you're developing. Like I said, you guys are very blessed to have the skill to create art and tell these stories in this unique way. Photography has opened a new door in my life, a life that I never thought I would be taking. I never saw myself as a photographer. I never saw myself, giving this lecture to college students. I was just planning on, living that work life, working, enjoying life, but now I've been able to enjoy it in a new capacity. It's been a challenging last few years, but photography and the journey that brought me here has been very worthwhile. So, any questions?
We got a couple minutes for questions. We got
Where do you see your photography going in the future?
I would like to have my own studio, a gallery space at least. As far as career-wise, I do see myself more in the marketing, advertising, public relations. Just because with photography, once you have those skills, you can move on to video. Has the same technical aspects, the same creative eye. So really, I'm wanting my photography to be just for people to see. I've very much stepped away from senior photos. I do it for family and I do it for friends, but I've stepped away from that because what I see myself as is a gallery artist. An artist that can talk about those stories. So I see it going into a more studio and gallery world. Yep.
How long does it usually take you to actually edit a photo when you're ready to say, okay, it's ready to be shown? How long does it
So it depends on the photo. I don't like photoshopping photos unless it's like to create a mask or something like that, but I don't like digitally altering it. The way I do it is if I shoot a collection or like do a session, I will edit if there's like 3 different exposures that I have it set as. So like some photos are overexposed, some are underexposed, or I have that perfect balance. I'll go in and edit those 3 photos and then create presets for myself that I can add to the next photos. So typically with that process, usually, and again, depending on what I'm shooting, it could be from a few hours to a few days.
Do you ever shoot in film?
No, I want to. I have a collection of film cameras. I really want to. I just these past few years I've moved around a lot. I've changed jobs. I've just been incredibly busy on top of trying to learn new stuff outside of photography. But it is definitely something I see happening within this year.
Well, if there are any questions, let's give Carlos a good hand. I did want to mention too quickly that we're going to have, Carlos is going to be around for another day. We're going to have an art night out tonight at 6 o'clock, and I don't know where we're going to start. We're going to start Starving Rooster? Does that sound good?
Yeah.
You do that? Yeah?
Yeah, 6 p.m.
Okay. We'll start at 6 p.m. at the Starving Rooster. So if there are any students that want to come hang out and have dinner with Carlos and visit more, I also know that you're going to go out shooting this afternoon. A little bit, probably.
I was thinking probably like an hour before, if anything.
Before?
Like 5.
Okay, like 5?
Yeah.
Okay. So if there's anybody that's interested in going out and shooting photos as well with Carlos, you can let me know and I can get you in touch, find out where they are, all that
Yep.
stuff.
And if there's enough people, I'll stay afterwards, after dinner and stuff, and bring my camera.
Cool.
Yesterday we went with Diana, Sadie, and Greg, and it was a lot of fun to be out there.
It was cold, but it was good. We hoofed around downtown for an hour. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Carlos.
Alexa, did you get my text?
Yes.
We booked
Yeah.
Monday.
Monday, yeah. Same time or?